Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our Inspire the Mind interview series. I'm Rachel Kelly, mental health advocate and writer. And this week I am talking to Dudley McKenzie. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about him. He's an MBE. Congratulations, Duke. He's a British former professional boxer who competed from 1982 to 1998. And we, as you know, are about all things psychological, psychiatric, everything to do with mental health. And I'm really interested to talk to Duke because, as well as being this three-weight world champion, in 1995, very, very sadly, his best friend and his brother, and I'm feeling quite emotional as I'm saying this, his mentor, Dudley McKenzie, he very tragically took his own life when he was just 33. So since then, and as a result of his brother's suicide, Duke has dedicated himself to all matters mental health, and I'm really delighted. Welcome, Duke.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for your kind introduction.
Well, Duke, you know, I've sort of introduced you, but tell us a little bit more. Where are you based right now? Where are we talking from? Just to give a bit of context and how your day is going, as it were.
I'm a Croydon boy, born and bred.
Okay.
Lived in Croydon my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Moved to different areas, but always come back to my hometown because that's where I am.
Okay.
It's where I'm happiest, and I've lived here, like I say, my whole life. And yeah, I mean, listen, it's home.
Right. And so you were brought up there, you were educated in Croydon, and did the interest in sport and boxing, was that right from the get-go as a young boy, or when did you sort of get involved in professional, well, not professional, but in the boxing?
Yeah, I come from a big family. There's 6 boys and 1 girl. Mm-hmm. And my oldest brother, Clinton, it was actually his best friend at school that introduced him to boxing, a gentleman called Frankie Lucas. Mm-hmm. And he introduced Clinton to boxing at the age of 17. It was like the blind leading the blind. Then my brother Winston started, then my brother Dudley started, and then subsequently I started. I was 13.
Okay.
1972.
At a club or just as part of the school, or where were you actually boxing?
Oh, no, we went to it was an amateur boxing club in Croydon called the Sir Philip Game ABC, that's Amateur Boxing Club. Right. We all started there, and there were some big stars come out of that gym. Frank Bruno was there. He's probably the biggest name. Yeah, Frank was there. He came after us, admittedly. He came from another gym, but anyway, he joined us at the Sir Philip Game. It was a highly successful amateur club. My elder brother Clinton represented Great Britain in 1976, boxing out of the Sir Philip Game Amateur Boxing Club, but obviously representing the country. And my brother Dudley, also, he was in England international.
Wow, so you're incredible sporting family then. It's not just you who's kind of hit the heights in terms of boxing success.
No, not at all, not at all. Listen, it was like the blind leading the blind, and I just followed all of my brother's footsteps. My older brother, like I say, went to the 76 Olympic Games. My brother Dudley, he was also an England international. My brother Dudley, as an amateur boxer, my brother Dudley went unbeaten for 8 years. He won 8 national titles back to back.
Wow.
As mentioned in the Guinness Book of Records at that time, it was a record.
So you could practice among each other, the brothers. You could box with each other.
Yeah, it didn't really work out like that because I was the smallest, so I used to get trodden on quite a lot. But I had too much sense really, because I wouldn't ever try and spar with my brothers because they were all bigger than me. But they were all equally supportive, gave me bags of encouragement. Okay. Like I say, it was just.
And in the end, you ended up the sort of top of all of them by, you know, with all your trophies and champions, etc., championship wins, etc.
Well, it wasn't until my brothers put me in a position where I could meet a top manager as a professional, and a top coach as a professional, and they put me in a position where I could certainly meet those guys, and I had to convince those guys that I was actually worth it.
Okay, what sort of age are we? What sort of age are we when you know?
I turned professional at 19.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it is quite early, but I was unemployed, and I had nothing on my hands except time. And I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. You know the old saying, revolving doors. You know, if you miss your slip, then you can miss your opportunity in life. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. I met a guy called Mickey Duff, who changed my life. She changed my life forever. He was Mr. Boxing of that generation. He was what Arsene Wenger was to Arsenal. He was that of the boxing fraternity. Mickey Duff. Yeah, that's a slight analogy there.
But maybe you're being kind of modest. Is there an echo on the line? There's a little bit of an echo. I hope it's clear for people. But yeah, so yeah, you're lucky. You got this incredible family support. You've got this amazing coach but at the same time, you've got to have some great discipline and commitment to actually put in the hours. And you must have had that too.
Well, my dedication came solely from watching my older brother Dudley and Clinton. My brother Dudley was there's 18 months between us. So Dudley was training like a professional when he was an amateur boxer, and maybe that's why he was so successful. But his attitude was always great, and Dudley would always inspire me to do better, be better, see better. And Dudley would always say to me that he'd just call me like Little Man. That was like my pet name. And he'd say to me, Little Man. He'd say to me, your best days are ahead of you. You're going to do some amazing things in boxing. When you're sort of 13, 14, 15, I had no reason not to believe him because Dudley was my idol. And because he had this prolific, fantastic amateur record, and I had no reason to doubt him. So by the time I switched to the professional ranks and getting Mickey Duff, my manager, to manage me, that's another story. And asking my coach, Colin Smith, to train me, that's another story. I had a good little setup, I really did. Those guys were experts in their field. So what they did was gave me their knowledge and their wisdom with my natural ability that I obviously had, and brought it out on me. So really, I was destined to do something in a professional game. I just didn't know what. I didn't know I was going to climb the heights that I did. When I first turned professional, it was never a dream of mine to become a world champion or even a European or a British champion. But these things they kind of fell into my lap. And, but I was borderline obsessed with boxing, and by this time, I spent quite a lot of my early years as a professional boxer. I spent it in America. My manager took me on this whistle-stop tour of America. And we had several fights over there. Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Reno, Atlantic City, New York, you name it, Miami. We went everywhere.
So you're basically a professional boxer all the way through your 20s?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, throughout the whole of my career, I was professionally boxing.
Okay, and do you still box now, or have you now stopped boxing altogether?
No, I don't box anymore. I'm too old for that now. I consider myself a bit.
When does one stop boxing? I don't know much about it.
I mean, a lot depends on your management. A lot depends on your success. A lot depends on your ability. My career spanned 17 years as a professional boxer. Right. And along the way, I've been a British champion twice in 2 separate weight divisions, a European champion, and a 3-division world champion. So I've got quite a unique boxing record. In terms of achievements, I'm kind of an overachiever in a lot of ways. Sure. Because not everybody gets to fight for a British or European or a world title. And not everybody can win those sort of championships. But I've been very, very fortunate. When the opportunity came, I was able to take them. And I have a very unique, I had a very privileged career. Yeah. I won more than I lost. Yeah. And that's all that really matters.
There's 2 things that strike me about what you've been saying. I really like that point about like a team support, and actually it's partly, having the right people around you just, translates into that kind of success. But also I love that point that when somebody said to you, you've got great things ahead of you, and you didn't have any reason not to believe that. And I think that's wonderful. I want to move on to sort of, as it were, the meat of our own sort of focus here is sort of psychological health. So you're in the middle of this very successful career when your brother takes his life, or have you retired from boxing when that happens?
No, I was coming up towards probably the later part of my career. I'd already been world champion in different weight divisions. In actual fact, I just challenged for the 4th world championship fight.
Right.
And it was in that year.
So how old are you at this point?
32.
32, okay.
Yeah, 32 at this point. So I'd gone through, like I say, a highly successful career. I'm just coming up to the end of my career. I just challenged for a 4th world championship fight, which I'd lost to a gentleman called Steve Robinson, who was a very, very good world champion, I might add. And yeah, I lost him. I lost that fight, and then
you're in the US or you're in the UK when this is happening?
Oh, sorry. No, this fight's in the UK. This
Okay,
fight's
you're
in the UK. Yeah, 1995.
Right. Okay.
Lost that fight, and then it was a question of, well, what am I going to do next? So I sat down with Dudley and we discussed my next sort of move, and then yeah, then my brother checked out on me. So I mean, listen, it's something to this day that I live with. There's a big hole in my heart where I'll never ever fill it. Nothing can give me what I want, but I've learned to manage it on a daily basis, and I try not to. I just take all the positives that my brother taught me, all that I am and all that I can ever hope to be. I've learned from my brother Dudley.
Remind me which brother it was. It was also a boxing brother. Dudley.
Yeah, Dudley. Yeah, Dudley. My brother Dudley.
So Dudley, the one who's been such a role model and so important in all your career, he is the one that you lose.
Yeah. So I can't even put it into words, the devastation that I've experienced over my own personal life, or how it made me feel, or even how it makes me feel. But I have to, like I say, I manage it on a daily basis. I'm not, you know what? I'm not suicidal, or I'm not about to do anything crazy, or you know. I mean, listen. Unfortunately, people win and lose in life all the time. But I had such a unique experience with a man who I loved more than myself, and I can't even begin to put it into words, really, what he meant to me. You know, I've been trying to write a book for the last probably 5 or 6 years of my life, and I cannot find the words to do my brother justice in the book, because I can't. You see, if I don't tell the whole story, it doesn't do my brother justice. But equally, if I tell the whole story, it brings back a lot of. It's kind of bittersweet emotion, really. And if, like I say, if I don't tell the whole story, it doesn't do him justice. If I tell the whole story, then again, I wouldn't want anybody to judge my brother. Do you understand? I mean, there's a lot of things that have happened in both of our lives, which nobody knows about to a degree. And I just think to myself, it is so personal. Part of me wants to say, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's nothing like we ain't murdered anybody, or there's never been any sort of like drug abuse, or we haven't got a body stashed in the garden or anything like that. I don't mean it like that. I just mean there's a lot that happened in our childhood, which I find quite painful. But by that same token, some of those things that happened in our childhood shaped my character now, and while it might have made me a little bit stronger, it didn't. It ruined my brother. So
many interesting things happening here. You know, the therapeutic power of writing and what that means for you, and I'd like to talk about that. But just before we get there, just rewinding. You know, telling stories. So there's two separate things. There's your story, and then there's your brother's story, and obviously there's how those stories fit together. But I suppose what I'm interested in is that, could you just tell us a little bit about what you think was happening for your brother? Was he depressed? Had he been unwell for a while? You know, the context in which he took his life.
Well, without going into too much kind of detail, I wouldn't say my brother was depressed. I wouldn't say he was suicidal or anything like that. I saw my brother on the morning that he checked out, and it was we'd always greet each other with a kiss and a cuddle. My brother would cuddle me like I was his best friend, and vice versa. And when Daddy came to my house on that morning, there was nothing. And when I say nothing at all, there was no signs. There was no crying. There was no tears. There was nothing. So when my brother cuddled me to say goodbye, or he was going, that wasn't anything unusual. But as he went out the door, I said to my wife at the time, I said to her, I'll go and see Daddy after training tonight. I need to talk to him. There's something not quite right. I didn't know what it was, but I knew there was something not quite right. And I said, I'll go and see him after training. But I got back from the gym that night and I was knackered. And so I got home, had my share of something to eat, and I went, you know what, I'll go tomorrow. But for me, tomorrow didn't come, because by the time I sort of got to sleep, then I had the call in the middle of the night, and then everything just went pear-shaped from there. So I suppose in some ways there's a little bit of guilt attached, I suppose.
Right.
The fact that I never got to see my brother on the night that I'd intended to. But
Yeah,
I also believe that even if I had have seen him on that night, at some point, he was always going to do what he did. So the difference between me and Dudley, I suppose, was if I had a problem, I could go to him with that problem and say, look, Dud, this is wrong, or I'm not right about this, or A, B, C, D. If Dudley told me I could have beaten Mike Tyson, I'd have believed him. The difference between me and Dudley was simply that Dudley wouldn't take my advice, or he would only take it to a point, and then he'd switch off, because Dudley always had the answer to everything I've ever done in my life. My brother always had an answer for. That's why I've not really, I've had to stand on my own 2 feet for quite an, when Dudley was around, I didn't really have to think, really. I was on autopilot all the time, because my brother would give me so much confidence in myself. If Dudley told me I could have beaten Mike Tyson, I'd have believed him. So, and there was no reason to doubt him, because Dudley was this good-looking, confident, strong, articulate. Dudley had everything. Everybody loved Dudley. I've never, even as a world champion, I'll just tell you this story quickly. Even as a world champion, as you can imagine, when you're a world champion, everybody wants to pat you on the back, take you out, be seen with you, the whole shebang. Yeah. And I've been to many, many, parties, clubs, and one thing and another, and I've never been anywhere. Dudley had like this magnitude. He was like a magnet, and people would just sort of like gravitate to my brother, and they'd want to talk to him. And I was like, Jesus, it was incredible. And I was like the world champion. I never got that attention. I was never jealous of my brother or ever envious of my brother. In actual fact, I loved it, because I could take a step back and look at my brother and just think to myself, I was so proud of my brother. Like I say, I loved him more than life itself. And I can't even really, like I say, even now, it does get me choked up, because I've never had a relationship like that with another man before in my life. I've got another 5 brothers who I love dearly. Several of them I'm really close to, but it's a different relationship. And Dudley was my brother, my best friend, my confidant. Dudley, he represented so much in my life, really. And like I say, it's hard for me to try and describe or put that into words.
Yeah. So I suppose one of the things I'm interested, anybody listening, is, obviously this sort of the idea that it sort of came out of the blue. There was no obvious reason for it, from what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
He was an amazing guy. He seemed to have all the gifts that the good fairy could bestow on somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that it's helpful for people to try and understand why something happens, or do you think you just have to kind of accept that someone chose to take their own life?
It really is about acceptance and forgiveness.
Right.
And forgiveness. If somebody takes their life, obviously there's a darker side to them than anybody could ever imagine, and there's a side to them that they don't want everybody to see. So they're like, my brother was like an actor, I suppose, in that respect. Mm-hmm. He would show me and the whole world a certain side, but mm-hmm. I suppose behind closed doors there was some torment, a lot of torment going on in his mind. But you just wouldn't see it. My brother wasn't into like drink, drugs, self-harm. There was no outbursts, no outrages. There was no visible signs. There was nothing to suggest.
Though you hinted that maybe you did have quite a challenging upbringing, and maybe it was more challenging for him than it was for you.
Oh, I mean, our upbringing with my dad, who was a typical West Indian man of a certain generation. His way was his way or no way. Right. So if you didn't do what he said, you wouldn't just get a slap or a kick or a shove or a push or whatever. My dad used to go to town, and by that I mean my dad he would like lose his mind. So I think today they might describe my dad as maybe like, I don't know, maybe a bit like a sociopath, or he was not
be physically violent.
Physically violent, verbally violent, you name it, he was it.
And your mum was a...
Yeah, my mum suffered it. Everybody suffered at the hands of my dad. None of us, my mum included, and my sister.
Right.
Everybody suffered at the hands of my father at that time.
Right.
Growing up. We grew up in South Norwood, 103 Birchanger Road, South Norwood. And like I say, my dad was a very, very violent man. It's any way you can describe him. So he was probably borderline bipolar, because he'd have mood swings. He'd be up and down like a yo-yo. And like I say, you can't really you can't understand somebody's behaviour like that because they don't really understand themselves. And where mental health is spoken about today, back then in the 70s, it wasn't. So, like I say, we've had to deal with, or endure, I should say, quite a lot growing up. But some of my brothers, it made us stronger. Some of us, it broke. It obviously broke Dudley to a degree. And
yeah,
I guess that's why.
Yeah, thank you for sharing it. That sounds really hard. And, you know, how absolutely tragic, you know, I just want to say that. I mean, I'm really interested, you know, you make a really good point, you know, that mental health was not a topic in the 70s. And I'm just wondering, in your own life, you know, you had this very supportive set of brothers, you had this incredible career. Up to that point, when you lost your brother, had you had any therapy or thought much about psychological health or mental health? And did that change after you lost your brother?
Yeah, you see, as a professional boxer, you're taught a lot of life skills. The training that you do is quite regimented. So it's almost like being in the army, I suppose, in some ways. Mm-hmm. You know, you train at a certain time, you eat at a certain time, you go to bed at a certain time, you live your life, you eat it, sleep it, walk it, and you talk it. You try not to look it, obviously. So, but that training is your therapy, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
You know, the getting up at like 4 a.m. in the morning and doing a 10-mile run on an empty stomach, that's therapy. Going to bed on a summer's evening at 6 o'clock, you know, when the sun's out and it's bright and everybody else is going out, but you're in your bed because you know you've got to get up at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock the next morning and do the same thing again, go out and do your run. You've got a diet, you've got to go to bed. It's such a strict upbringing. It's such a strict life to live. Maybe that's why, you know, many are called, but few are chosen. And when I think to myself, when I look back on my boxing achievements, I think to myself, you know, I'm really one of the guys that was dedicated to the core. That's why I hit probably so much success that I did. But I think anybody that's found success in their life, they've probably been like me to a degree. You know, if
there's a cost.
There's a huge price to pay.
Yeah, I mean, what you're describing to me is not maybe so much therapy, but it's a very rigid kind of rules for living. So in that sense, maybe it is, you know, maybe therapy is about a different approach, but you had one model of how to live, and in that model there wasn't much room for other ways of living.
No, absolutely, that's absolutely correct. So
and did that change after you lost your brother? Because in a way, you know, obviously that must have been such a shock that maybe you thought, well, you know, maybe whatever I was doing before, I'm maybe going to have to take a look at this to get through this next stage of my life.
Well, you know, after losing Dudley, you know, I'd seen a counsellor, I'd been to counselling, I'd seen several counsellors, went through some pretty tough times on a personal level. And I found the one thing that's really helped me with my mental health is my physical health. So, I keep myself in tip-top shape by my standards. It's not everybody else's standards, you understand, because everybody does different things to keep themselves fit. But I keep myself in tip-top physical shape to help my mental state of mind. And also, I try to be a realist, and I try to be realistic with myself and ask myself, you know, what do I want out of life? I've just become a granddad. So, it's so beautiful.
Glamorous grandfather.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. You're not too bad yourself.
How old are you now? You're pretty young to be a grandfather, right? How old are you?
No, I'm 58, 59 in a couple. Yeah, I'm 59 in a couple of
You look so young. Whatever you're doing that's also a secret to youth.
Training. Just listen. I don't train excessively. I train twice a week. I do a little 3-mile, 4-mile jog once a week, and I do a little gym session once a week. But right now I'm on about week 18, 19 of just consecutive training 2 or 3 times a week.
And just going one level deeper, why do you think that kind of concentration on physical health helps mental health so much?
You know the old saying, healthy body, healthy mind. That's how it works. You know, listen, I don't drink, I don't smoke. I look after
the endorphin high? Is it as simple as that, or are there other things going on about why sport is so important?
Well, you know, I'm a great believer that, you know, if you're carrying weight, excessive body weight, then that's going to bring your mood down. That's my belief. If you're carrying excessive weight, that's going to bring your mood down. If you can lose some of that weight, then surely your mood has to go up. And you know the old saying, what goes up must come down. So I eat right, I sleep right. I'm not regimented, you understand? If I want to go and have McDonald's tonight, I'll go and have it. Or you know, if I want to have Nando's or whatever, I'll go and have it. But I'm a great believer in, if I'm going to have that, then I have to make sure I do something to get rid of those excess pounds. But I do the physical side of things as opposed to trying to do things the wrong way. Let's say that.
But obviously, totally agree. You know, some doctors say that, you know, exercise is the equivalent to a mild antidepressant, and it's like a kind of wonder drug, and if you could buy it, it would be worth $1 billion and whatever. But the problem, I suppose, for a lot of people listening is that they actually struggle. You know, you've got this kind of motivation and a kind of clarity, but what would you say to people who don't find it easy to exercise, or just, you know, it's not part of their life in the way it's part of your life?
Well, the easiest way to clarify that, or the easiest way to explain that is, you know, you've got to ask yourself, what do you want out of life? It really is as black and white as that. If you want a happy life, you don't have to do excessive exercise, but, you know, we've all got it in us to get up, open the front door and go for a walk. You don't even have to walk. You don't have to walk miles and miles and miles. If you just start off with walking to the bottom of the road and back and make that a routine, and then you start to extend that routine, you start walking a little bit further, you'll find within a short space of time, your legs start working properly and you start feeling just a little bit better about yourself. Then that walk goes to maybe like a 10, 15, 20-minute walk. And then you just gradually increase it, 15, 20 minutes, half an hour walk. Next thing you know, you're walking for like an hour and you get an exercise. So I don't really buy into the concept of people saying that they don't want to exercise or they can't exercise, because walking is a great therapy. And
except we have an obesity diet. Oh, this is a terrible echo on today. I'm sorry about this, but anyway, maybe we can clean it up later. Sorry, listeners. But, you know, we've got an obesity crisis. You know, 2/3 of the UK are overweight. So it is a problem for a lot of people. Any other kind of practical things that you know, I totally get that. Little and often, you know.
That's it, little and often.
Up, you know, what's your motivation? Any other thoughts to kind of get people moving?
Well, you know, eat healthy. You don't even have to spend a fortune trying to eat healthy. You know, if you can just maybe have like 2 or 3 pieces of fruit a day, as opposed to putting a cigarette in your mouth, or, you know, pouring a pint of beer down your neck, that will help, certainly. You know, you've got to look at what you really want. And if you can cut down your bad habits and change them for good habits, then surely that's going to benefit you in the long term, you know, not physically and mentally.
I mean, I totally get the rationale, and I just the reality is a lot of people, they can know it intellectually or cognitively that that's a good idea. I mean, nobody in the world disagrees, but it's just like so many people still struggle with actually doing it. I do really agree with you about the habit forming. For example, I made a big difference to me. I put my trainers in the cupboard by the front door.
Right.
And just that little shift means that I never have to struggle. The trainers are there. I get out that bit more often. So, but yeah, and just I just think it's such an interesting area. Have you got any other thoughts for people?
Yeah, I mean, little things like that. And even if you don't want to go out, you know, you could get yourself, like, maybe just get yourself a little skipping rope, go out in your garden and have a little skip for 10, 15 minutes. Not every day. You can do it every other day. And if you don't want to skip, then surely if you're sitting out in your garden, because the weather's about to change, we're coming to British summertime now, getting a bit of sun on your skin, or just maybe go in your garden, pick up a book and read and sit out in the sunshine for a little while. That will help. That will lift your spirit a little bit.
Sure.
I like nothing more than just to be in my garden with my little dog, and I just watch my dog just walk around.
Lovely.
And it's like he's like my therapist, I should say. Trevor, he's a beagle. He's a little bit, he's a little bit of a nutter, but he's so, you know, he knows everything about me and I know everything about him. He's like my therapist today. Yeah, he's great. So I'm just watching him now, actually.
That's a really common idea in therapy, of being known, being understood. You know, that's in itself very sort of a very lovely feeling, that somebody knows and understands you and loves you, because that's so unconditional. I'm really interested in other sort of psychological approaches. Obviously, we talked a little bit about exercise and why that helps you, but you know, you talked about, you referenced sort of like acceptance. When your brother passed, that acceptance was helpful. Are there other sort of psychological ideas that you know, you could share about you know, people facing, you know, such a terrible loss?
Well, you know, self-doubt is that's like a disease in itself. You know, some people wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, don't even like themselves. But I can assure you that, you know, you have to learn to, without sounding, I'm not sure what the right word is, but you know, when people say they love themselves, they can sound like they're a little bit up themselves a little bit, but I don't mean it like that. I don't think nobody loves me more than I love myself. I try to think, I never think to myself I'm better than anybody else, but I don't think I'm worse than anybody else. And I just think if you can just give yourself a little pat on the back, just for opening, sometimes you just got to open your eyes and just say, you know what, thank God I'm alive, because everybody's got challenges, everybody's got skeletons in their closet, and a lot of people don't want to share their grief or whatever's going on in their lives. So everybody needs somebody to talk to. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are, where you are in your life. Even the people with the strongest minds need somebody to talk to. In their lives.
Yeah, a lot of that really resonates, especially the sort of idea of our kind of common humanity, and also not being hierarchical, that like somebody's above you or below you, that we've all got our issues, we're sort of side by side rather than kind of I like that. So I'm just chatting to Duke McKenzie, just in case anybody's tuned in, champion boxer and now mental health advocate, and very interested in this mental health world after he lost his brother. So Duke, back to you. Just going back, so you're no longer a professional boxer, you lost your brother, we've talked a bit about some of these sort of psychological tools. Tell me a bit more about your mental health advocacy work and how you've been involved in that world.
Well, over the years I've worked with the Mind organisation, and we used to run boxing classes with Mind, I should say, in conjunction with Mind, for service users from Mind in Croydon. And I've done several different training classes, several different training groups. 2011, the boxing program which we was running won a national award, the National Social Care and Wellbeing Award, quite a prestigious event held at the O2 Arena. And out of about 200 different topics, projects on your mental health and physical health, the boxing project came out on top. And I just think that I'm not going to take credit for it, because I believe that everybody that attended my classes, everybody got something out of it, because I just think that they kind of found themselves a little bit. And it wasn't a question of, there's no physical contact, you understand. It's not like you're sparring or anything like that. But I just put people through a boxing program, if you will, and they loved it. And I didn't have any dropouts. And it's so rewarding for me. I don't want to train boxers per se. I don't want to be a manager in the professional world of boxing. I'd much rather do what I was doing on a daily basis, far more rewarding.
But why do you think boxing helps people's mental health in that way?
Well, I think most boxers are strong-minded, strong-willed, and I think everybody needs somebody that they can talk to. And I also think people just on a general level, if you're working out, there has to be a leader, right? There has to be somebody that's the front man, that's doing whatever. And then if you lead, then people will follow. And I just think that, you know, with good leadership and personality, you can just about, Trevor, that's my Trevor, yeah, he's just telling me off now.
You probably you've given us enough time. But no, but that's interesting. I like that. So sort of the companionship of it, and also the role model of the person leading the class in a way.
Yeah.
As someone strong.
Yeah.
You know, both physically strong, and therefore, I suppose there's a kind of subliminal idea that they're psychologically strong, that the two go together.
Yeah.
But I'm just feeling around the topic. I'm really, you know, it's interesting what you're saying. Why did that come out on top of all those different strategies that Mind were offering?
It's incredible, really, like I say, and yeah, I do look back now and I think, so, you know, it would be great if they could continue it. We haven't done a boxing class for some time now. I think probably because of a lack of funds, but it's been one of the most rewarding jobs I've done.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's been one of the most rewarding jobs I've done, and I've got probably, out of the service users that I've used, used, or had in my gym, I should say. You know, I've still got several that have come back to my gym now.
So do you run gyms as well? Is that what you've done since your professional career stopped?
Yeah, I've got a gym I've got my own little gym in Croydon.
Nice.
Called the Jukebox.
I better come.
You better come. You better come down.
I box myself.
Yeah, I can tell.
How did you know?
Because you've got a strong personality, and you get to read body language as a professional boxer, and you're quite a confident woman. So I needed something physical.
It has helped my confidence so much, and I've had a long story of my own of depression and anxiety, and writing about it, and you know, finding ways to get well and strong again. And
yeah,
I was just, another reason it helps me a lot is that you have to focus. So like when you're doing it, you can't have all your worries, all your concerns, all the things that are messing with your mind. You've got to be present. I'm getting a bit goosebumpy actually, because it's kind of, it's a bit like mindfulness in that it's sort of very present centered, and can't worry about the future, can't regret the past. You just got to be there, you know, in the ring, focused, working out, being with your trainer. And I think that's why it's such a powerful thing. I think that's another reason I was excited to talk to you, because it's something that's made a big difference to my life. I only do it once a week.
Yeah, let's do it once a week. Yeah, great. That's fantastic.
Okay, that's encouraging, because I've always this bit of me thinking I should be doing it more often.
No, once a week's more than enough. It really is. If you've got a good coach, and it sounds like you've had a good coach previously, then obviously he's taught you right. But you need to come down. You need to come down and see me at the gym. You do, yeah. Come and have a little workout. You'll love it. I promise you.
Oh, I'll have to say I'm really taken with that. Okay, so listen, we've you know, you said earlier like this idea that you'd found strategies to manage things. I'm just one thought before we're keeping an eye on the time, but before, very sadly, we have to sort of head towards wrapping up. But have things changed over that time? So you said you're now 59.
Yeah, 59 is in a couple of months. Yeah.
Can't believe that, but anyway, 59. So it's been you've had what, nearly 30 years. No, my math's not very good. You've had a long period living with this loss, this grief, losing your brother. How has that changed over that time?
It's changed quite a lot. Like I say, the grief is still the same, the pain is still the same. But when you learn to manage things on a daily basis, and you start looking at the things that really matter in your life, then it's like an eye-opener, really. Like I say, you know, listen, I'm a family man, always have been. I've got my own daughters, and I've got a son. Also, I've got two girls. I've got 2 girls and a son. My eldest daughter's just presented me with her first child. So I look at my eldest daughter now, and I see her as a mother in her own right. She's got her own child, and I see the way she loves her child. So now she'll get a better understanding how much I love her. And, you know, this whole circle of life, which I'm trying to describe to you, it's a very, very precious thing. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I look at my little granddaughter now, and every time I see her, I try to see her once a week, every week. And, you know, I don't want to let them go. So I try to keep everybody as close to me as I possibly can. If I had my way, if I won the lottery tonight, I'd buy a big mansion where we could all live. But my daughter's like this, nah, Dad, I don't want to live under your roof again, because they're all big, independent, grown people in their own right. So, but that's just like a pipe dream of mine.
You've described that beautifully. I really, that's so poetic and lovely. This, as you say, by seeing your daughter's love for her child, that gives her an understanding of your love for her, and that's a lovely sort of cyclical image of you know, that connection. I love that, and just that sort of lining up with what is joyous rather than, you know, some of the sadness. That's, you know, focusing on all the positives that you still have in your life, despite the loss of your brother. Somebody said to me once, I was doing some suicide awareness, so I'm involved with Mind as well. I work with Rethink Mental Illness. I'm an ambassador there, and also with SANE. So I do quite a lot of work with some of the charities as well. And one of these sessions, someone was saying, the loss is there, it doesn't go, just like you said, but there's more over time, there's more life that grows around it. And in a way, describing your growing family, it that brought that image to mind. It's that loss is there, but there's more else in your life as well?
Yeah.
More kind of taken up the space.
Yeah, like I say, there isn't a substitute for me where my brother's concerned. I haven't tried to fill one hole, and then, you know, with my family or with money or the other things that I like or the other things I want to achieve in my life. But I do feel sometimes I just feel that you know, it's hard for me to imagine that my best days are ahead of me even. But I look at, like I say, the joy that I get now from my grandchild. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've always been a happy guy. I've always had joy in my life, even since losing my brother, because I've got children of my own, and they're the apple of my eye, my girls and my son. So, but now I've got like this added little person, and I'm sure there's going to be more added little people that come into the McKenzie household, and I've got a lot of love to give. So I just think, you know, I want to like spread the love, continue being a good dad. I've always thought to myself, the most important job I've ever had in my whole life was just to be a good role model to my kids, be a good father to my kids. Far more important than being a professional boxer or winning world titles or British or European titles. I mean, that's all great, obviously, but that's never going to last forever.
Sure.
But my family will, and hopefully I'll you know, pass on my sort of wisdom and knowledge to them. And then when they have problems in their lives, as I'm sure they will at some point, they'll be strong enough in character to deal with it.
And talking of wisdom and knowledge, what would you say to someone listening in who maybe has very recently lost somebody to suicide, you know, who you know, your younger self or someone at that terribly extreme and tragic point in their life? What would you say to that person?
I would say to that person, find somebody that you love and somebody that you respect, and talk to that person. Because nobody's going to have the answers to your problem. Nobody's going to have the answers for you, but you find that as you start to talk about your problems, as you start to deliver whatever's going on in your head, then that in itself is like a therapy. It's like therapy. I don't really buy into, you know, drugs and stuff like that. And, you know, I know not everybody can do talking therapies. I understand that. And I do realize that some people do need medication to get through their, you know, their mental stresses and strains. But I just believe talking therapies, they really are a powerful drug in their own right. And you can't get anything better. I certainly don't believe. If I have a bad day, just in life, you know, I'd rather, you know, I talk to my best friend about it, and, you know, he knows me better than I know myself. And why I love him so much is because, you know, he never gives me advice. He just listens. And I think that's got to be one of the most powerful things you can do with anybody, is just listen. You don't try to give them the answers. You don't try to solve their problem, because you can never know. You know, you can't walk in their shoes, but you just listen and you just take it on board. And then I think if you've got a problem, the reality is, you know, the answer to the problem. You just got to identify what it is, and then do a little tick box, you know.
Yeah. I like that. I've been trying this myself recently, actually. So I work with a therapist, and I'm a mum, and you know, this business of advice. And she said, unless somebody actually asks you for advice, they're not going to receive it. They're not going to listen to it. So I was thinking with the children, you know, sort of my old method has been a bit more, here's some advice. Right. And now I try never to give any advice unless I'm specifically asked. If I'm not asked, then I just exactly as you say, you know, you've got 2 ears, 1 mouth, listen twice as much as you talk. So I really like that. And I also really like your idea that, you know, on some level we do know the answers ourselves. I often talk about this idea that your main relationship is with yourself. So sometimes that chatting to others sort of elicits and enables that knowing that we actually have. It's not that the other person knows, but that sense of connection and sort of support helps us get to what we know.
I mean, listen, have you written a book, Rachel?
A few actually.
I thought, I was going to say, if you hadn't, then you should, because obviously you're very knowledgeable and you're very articulate. You come over really well and very clear, very decisive. So I'm sure your books are quite bestsellers. I'll have to get one.
I should. I've done quite a few. I did one about my own experience being very unwell, and being in hospital. That was called Black Rainbow. That had like
Black Rainbow.
Yeah, and then I've done I was interested, you talk about nutrition. I did one called A Happy Kitchen. I'm just trying to see if I've got any of them here. Oh, I've got one here. I did this one here. This is sort of a nice little book called Walking on Sunshine. It's like ideas to help you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So yeah, you know, so my experience is different to you, but my wake up was my own illness. You know, maybe your wake up obviously was more like related to your brother, but I'm just, I suppose I'm really interested, but it's not about me. We've got to get back to you.
I like talking to you. You're really clued up, and like I say, you're very articulate.
Well, that's
and
nice of you.
obviously very knowledgeable. So
that's very nice of you. Actually, one thing that I've worked on in my therapy is accepting compliments.
Oh, okay. Well,
I find that really hard. You know, and maybe back to boxing. Another way that boxing psychologically interests me is the sort of like giving and receiving, and actually, you know, if you don't receive, you know, do the maths. We have to both give and receive, and something I've traditionally been quite a rescuer, a fixer, a giver, a sorter of others. And one of the things I'm trying to is receive. So I've just received your compliment. Thank you.
Oh well, listen, you're more than welcome. I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it, kid. You're a lovely woman, and you know, I don't really. I suppose you are probably. Maybe you were not great at taking compliments. I don't know why, because you know listen, you're just a normal, everyday woman, and you know if somebody's not giving you a compliment, then it shouldn't be that shouldn't become your problem. That's their problem, because if they can't see your beauty as the person that you are, then they're not worth it, are they?
Thank you. I know what you mean. I think often it's sort of maybe more about other people than, you know, one was not sure where I'm going with it.
You've got a see. This is the first time I've met you, right? So, but you've got you've got a lovely personality. You're very warming. You're quite easy to talk to. And everybody's like that. I meet people every day of the week that I can't really relate with or even talk to. Listen, you know, at my gym, you can imagine I get people coming in all the time. And you can pick up a certain vibe off of people. You get to read body language, and not everybody wants to talk. So I don't try to talk to everybody, and I certainly can't talk to everybody the way that I have with you today. And not because you've asked me to do an interview. You understand? Your personality is you're quite warming. You're quite natural. So you put me at ease.
Thank you. But another idea is it's always a co-creation. So it's because there's a connection between us. So back to giving and receiving. It's because we're creating something between us together.
Right.
So me on my own, I'm nothing. It's because we've got something going together.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't even go that far. You can't even say you on your own or nothing, because, like I say, you've got a lot of wisdom and a lot of knowledge. So that in itself, it doesn't matter who you meet. I'm sure you'd be the same.
What a nice thing to say. Woof! I'm going to wait.
It's a two-way thing, kid, I promise you.
My daughter always, when I give her a compliment, she goes, "Don't." Anyway, listen, Duke. So look, we're going to have to slowly wrap up, I'm afraid, which is a shame. We could keep chatting. So, our podcast, our chat's called Inspire the Mind.
Yeah, I'll look into it. I'll have a look.
Yeah, and I suppose I want to just sort of last question, really. If I had to ask you, what really most inspires you? What most inspires your mind?
What, today?
Yeah, could be today or just in general, or what really inspires you?
What really inspires me, what gives me the most pleasure just about being alive, is simply this, Rachel. I love being a dad.
Oh.
I love being a dad. I've wanted to be a dad since the age of 13. I fell in love with a woman on TV. How old are you, Rachel?
Guess.
Yeah, I reckon you're probably about 54, 5 maybe.
Tactful, 56. I'm nearly 57.
Okay, well, listen, you're doing well, kid. But I fell in love with, I don't remember a program called Soap by any chance? It was an American sort of sitcom program, right? So there was a woman on there called Jessica Tate, and her sister was called Mary Campbell. And they were these two sisters, and they always used to interact with each other all the time, everything they ever did. But one had a serious side, and the other one, Jessica had the funny side, and Mary had the serious side. And I fell in love with this woman. That's why my eldest daughter's called Jessica. I fell in love with her, and I just thought her personality, which is nothing I picked up with you, by the way, because you've got a great personality. She had this amazing personality. She was funny, witty, intelligent, strong, all in one go. And that's why I called my eldest daughter Jessica. But my children really are my biggest achievement in life, because I look at them and I listen to, when my daughters get together, this is one of the things I do. Sometimes I don't say a lot, I just listen. And I listen to the way they interact with one another, and I just think to myself, that's exactly how I would have said it, or it's exactly what I would have said. They make me laugh, they really do. Because my eldest daughter's like me a lot in my character. My younger one's got my mad side, the crazy side. So it's beautiful. So they are my inspiration. Yeah.
That is so lovely. Really, really lovely. I'd like to talk more, especially about that mad side, which you just in it at the end there, a bit tempting. Yeah. So we'll probably have to have another conversation. So listen, Thank you very, very much, Duke. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts on Inspire the Mind.